Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly felt like something was off? Maybe you got goosebumps or a weird feeling in your stomach? Or perhaps you've been in a place where you just couldn't shake off a bad mood, even though nothing was obviously wrong. Well, what if I told you that these feelings might not be all in your head? You might actually be picking up on negative energy around you. Now, I know what you're thinking. Negative energy? That sounds like some woo-woo stuff. But stick with me here, because understanding negative energy isn't just for spiritual gurus or psychics. It's something that can affect all of us, whether we believe in it or not. And learning to spot it, that could be a game changer for your everyday life. Think about it like this. We all know that some people can light up a room just by walking in, right? They've got that positive vibe that makes everyone feel good. Well, the opposite is also true. Some people or situations can bring a dark cloud with them, and that's what we're talking about when we say negative energy. But here's the thing, it's not always obvious. Negative energy can be sneaky. It can creep up on you without you even realizing it. And before you know it, you're feeling down, stressed out, or just plain exhausted, and you can't figure out why. That's why it's so important to learn how to spot it. Now you might be wondering, okay, but why should I care about this? What's the big deal? Well, let me tell you, if you don't know how to spot negative energy, it can really drag you down. And I mean really drag you down. Imagine you're going about your day, feeling pretty good. You've had your morning coffee, you're ready to tackle your to-do list, and then bam. You walk into a room, and suddenly you feel like all your energy has been sucked out. Your mood takes a nosedive, and you can't explain why. That's negative energy at work. Or maybe you've been hanging out with someone, and every time you're with them, you end up feeling drained, cranky, or just not yourself. But you can't put your finger on why. Yep, you guessed it. That could be negative energy too. The thing is, when you don't know how to spot this stuff, it can affect you in all sorts of ways. It can mess with your mood, your relationships, even your health. You might find yourself feeling tired all the time, getting into more arguments, or just feeling stuck in a rut. And the worst part? If you don't know what's causing it, you might start blaming yourself. You might think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be happy? But here's the good news. Once you learn how to spot negative energy, you can start to protect yourself from it. You can figure out where it's coming from and take steps to deal with it. It's like having a superpower. The power to control the energy around you and keep yourself feeling positive and strong. And let me tell you, that's a game changer. When you can spot and deal with negative energy, you'll find that your whole life starts to improve. You'll have more energy, better relationships, and you'll just feel lighter. Like a weight you didn't even know you were carrying has been lifted off your shoulders. So, are you ready to learn this superpower? Are you ready to take control of the energy around you and start living your best life? Great. Let's dive in and learn all about negative energy. All right, so we've talked about why it's important to spot negative energy. But let's back up a bit. What exactly is negative energy? I mean, we can't see it or touch it, so how do we know it's real? Well, think of energy like the atmosphere in a room. You can't see the air, but you know it's there, right? And you can definitely tell when the air is fresh and clean versus when it's stuffy and stale. Negative energy is kind of like that stuffy, stale air. You can't see it, but you can feel its effects. In spiritual terms, negative energy is a kind of invisible force that can affect our mood, our thoughts, and even our physical well-being. It's like a heavy, dark cloud that hangs around certain places, people, or situations. And just like a real cloud can block out the sun, negative energy can block out positivity and good vibes in our lives. Now, where does this negative energy come from? Well, it can come from all sorts of places. Sometimes it's left behind by negative events or emotions. For example, a room where a big argument happened might hold on to that negative energy for a while. Other times, it can come from people who are going through a tough time and are kind of leaking negative energy without meaning to. And here's something really important to understand. Negative energy isn't always about ghosts or supernatural stuff. Sure, some people believe in that kind of thing, and that's okay. But even if you don't, negative energy is still a real thing that can affect you. It's more about the vibe or atmosphere that surrounds us all the time. The cool thing is, everyone can learn to sense this energy. You don't need to be a psychic or a medium or have any special powers. In fact, you're probably already sensing it without even realizing it. Have you ever had a gut feeling about a person or a place? That's your energy sensing ability at work. Think of it like this. We all have the ability to sense the energy around us, just like we all have the ability to smell. Some people might have a more sensitive nose than others, but we can all smell things, right? Energy sensing is the same way. Some people might be more naturally tuned into it, but we all have the ability. And just like you can train your nose to pick up on subtle scents, you can train yourself to pick up on subtle energy. So how do you start tuning into this energy? Well, it starts with paying attention. Most of the time, we're so busy with our day-to-day lives that we don't stop to notice how we're feeling or what kind of vibe we're picking up from our surroundings. But when you start to pay attention, you might be surprised at what you notice. For example, next time you walk into a room, take a moment to pause and just feel. How does the room make you feel? Do you feel comfortable and relaxed or tense and on edge? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's all about tuning into your own feelings and sensations. Or try this. Next time you're talking to someone, pay attention to how you feel during and after the conversation. Do you feel energized and uplifted or drained and down? Again, there's no judgment here. It's just about noticing. As you practice this kind of awareness, you'll start to get better at picking up on the energy around you. And that's the first step in learning how to spot negative energy. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this all sounds a bit out there. And I get it. In our modern scientific world, talking about energy like this can seem a bit weird. But here's the thing. Even if you don't buy into the spiritual side of things, paying attention to how places and people make you feel is still super valuable. It can help you make better decisions about where you spend your time and who you spend it with. So whether you're a total believer in spiritual energy or a complete skeptic, I encourage you to keep an open mind as we dive deeper into this topic. Because at the end of the day, learning to spot negative energy isn't about believing in something mystical. It's about tuning into your own feelings and experiences and learning to trust your instincts. And let me tell you, once you start doing that, you might be amazed at what you discover. You might start to understand why certain places or people always seem to bring you down. You might figure out why you sometimes feel drained for no apparent reason. And most importantly, you'll start to learn how to protect yourself from negative energy and keep your own energy positive and strong. So, are you ready to dive deeper? Are you ready to learn the signs of negative energy and how to spot them in your daily life? Great. In the next part of our video, we're going to talk about the physical signs of negative energy. Because believe it or not, negative energy doesn't just affect your mood. It can actually have physical effects on your body. But don't worry, we'll get to that soon. For now, I want you to start practicing that awareness we talked about. Pay attention to how different places and people make you feel. Don't judge it, just notice it. And as you do, you'll be taking your first steps towards becoming an energy sensing pro. Trust me, it's a skill that will serve you well in all areas of your life. So, let's recap what we've learned so far. We've talked about what negative energy is, an invisible force that can affect our mood and well-being. We've discussed why it's important to learn how to spot it, because it can really drag you down if you don't know it's there. And we've started to explore how everyone has the ability to sense energy, even if they don't realize it yet. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, and some of it might seem a bit abstract, but don't worry. As we continue, we're going to get into some really practical, concrete ways to spot negative energy. We'll talk about specific signs to look out for, both in yourself and in your environment. And we'll discuss what you can do when you do spot negative energy. Remember, this is all about empowering you to take control of the energy in your life. It's about helping you create a more positive, uplifting environment for yourself. And trust me, once you start doing that, you'll be amazed at how much better you feel in all areas of your life. So, are you excited to learn more? Are you ready to become an energy sensing pro? Great. Stay tuned because we've got a lot more to cover. And trust me, by the time we're done, you'll be spotting negative energy like a pro. And more importantly, you'll know exactly what to do about it. Now that we understand what negative energy is and why it's important to spot it, let's talk about how it can actually affect you physically. Yeah, you heard that right. Negative energy doesn't just mess with your mood, it can actually make your body feel different too. Think about it like this. Have you ever been around someone who's really stressed out or angry? Even if they're not saying anything, you can often feel the tension in your own body, right? Maybe your shoulders get tight, or you start to feel a headache coming on. That's a perfect example of how energy, in this case, negative energy, can affect you physically. So, what are some of the physical signs that you might be surrounded by negative energy? Well, one of the most common is feeling tired for no reason. You know those days when you've had plenty of sleep, but you still feel like you're dragging yourself through the day? When it feels like someone's attached weights to your arms and legs? That could be negative energy at work. Another sign to watch out for is getting goosebumps or chills when there's no obvious reason for it. Now, I'm not talking about when you're cold or when you hear a really good song. I mean those times when you suddenly feel a chill run down your spine, even though the room is warm and nothing scary is happening. That could be your body's way of telling you that it's picking up on some negative vibes. You might also notice a heavy feeling in your chest. It's like when you're really sad about something, and it feels like there's a weight sitting right on your heart. But in this case, the feeling comes on suddenly and you can't figure out why you're feeling that way. That's often a sign that you're in the presence of some heavy, negative energy. Some people even report feeling physical pain when they're around negative energy. It might be a headache that comes on suddenly, or a stomach ache that doesn't seem to have any cause. Of course, if you're experiencing frequent pain, it's always a good idea to check with a doctor. But if you notice that these aches and pains tend to show up in certain places or around certain people, it might be worth considering whether negative energy is playing a role. Now, here's something really interesting. Some people find that they start yawning a lot when they're around negative energy. It's like their body is trying to take in more oxygen to combat the heaviness of the negative vibes. So if you find yourself yawning in a situation where you're not actually tired, pay attention. It could be your body's way of trying to protect you from negative energy. Remember, everyone experiences these physical signs differently. You might feel all of these, or just one or two. The key is to start paying attention to your body and noticing when these feelings come up. Over time, you'll start to recognize your own unique physical responses to negative energy. Okay, so we've talked about how negative energy can affect you physically. But let's be real. Some of the biggest impacts of negative energy are emotional. After all, energy is all about feelings, right? So it makes sense that when there's negative energy around, your emotions are going to take a hit. One of the most common emotional signs of negative energy is suddenly feeling sad or down for no apparent reason. You know those times when you're going about your day, everything seems fine, and then out of nowhere you just feel blah, like a cloud has settled over you? That could be negative energy at work. Anger is another big one. If you find yourself getting irritated or angry more easily than usual, especially in certain places or around certain people, that's a red flag. Maybe you snap at your friend for no reason, or you find yourself getting frustrated by little things that normally wouldn't bother you. That sudden shift in your mood could be your emotional response to negative energy in your environment. Anxiety is also a common emotional sign of negative energy. You might start feeling nervous or on edge, even when there's no obvious reason to be worried. It's like your mind is racing, trying to figure out what's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. That feeling of unease? Yep, it could be negative energy. Another thing to watch out for is feeling emotionally drained. This is different from physical tiredness. It's that feeling when you just don't have the emotional energy to deal with people or situations. You might find yourself wanting to avoid social interactions or feeling overwhelmed by things that you usually handle just fine. If this sounds familiar, negative energy might be the culprit. Now, here's an interesting one. Some people report feeling confused or scattered when they're around negative energy. It's like you can't think straight or make decisions. You might find yourself forgetting things or having trouble focusing. It's as if the negative energy is creating a kind of mental fog. One more emotional sign to be aware of is a sudden lack of motivation. Maybe you were all fired up to start a new project, but as soon as you sit down to work on it, you just can't. The enthusiasm drains away, and you can't figure out why. If this happens, especially in specific places or around certain people, it could be a sign that negative energy is interfering with your motivation. Remember, just like with physical signs, everyone experiences these emotional signs differently. You might experience all of these or just one or two. The important thing is to start noticing how your emotions shift in different situations and around different people. And here's a really important point. Experiencing these emotions doesn't automatically mean there's negative energy around. We all have ups and downs in our moods. That's totally normal. What we're looking for here are sudden, unexplained shifts in your emotional state, especially if they happen consistently in certain places or around certain people. Now that we've covered how negative energy can affect you physically and emotionally, let's talk about something that ties it all together: changes in behavior. Because when negative energy is messing with your body and your emotions, it's bound to show up in how you act too. One of the biggest behavioral changes you might notice when there's negative energy around is a tendency to withdraw or isolate yourself. You know those times when you just want to hide under the covers and not deal with the world? If that feeling comes on suddenly, especially in certain places or around certain people, it could be your subconscious trying to protect you from negative energy. Another thing to watch out for is increased conflict. If you find yourself arguing more, especially over little things, that could be a sign of negative energy at play. Maybe you're snapping at your partner more often, or you're getting into disagreements with coworkers over stuff that usually wouldn't bother you. Negative energy can make us all a bit more prickly. So if you notice an uptick in conflicts, it's worth considering whether negative energy might be involved. Procrastination is another common behavioral change that can signal the presence of negative energy. If you find yourself putting off tasks that you usually handle just fine, especially in certain environments, that could be negative energy zapping your motivation. It's like the negative vibes are creating a barrier between you and your goals. You might also notice changes in your sleep patterns. Maybe you're having trouble falling asleep, or you're waking up in the middle of the night for no reason. Or on the flip side, you might find yourself wanting to sleep all the time. Both of these can be signs that negative energy is messing with your natural rhythms. Changes in appetite can be another clue. Some people find that they lose their appetite when they're around negative energy, while others might start overeating as a way to comfort themselves. If you notice sudden changes in your eating habits, especially when you're in certain places or around certain people, it's worth paying attention to. Here's an interesting one. Some people find that they become clumsier when they're around negative energy. You might start dropping things more often or bumping into furniture. It's like the negative energy is throwing off your spatial awareness. Another behavioral change to watch out for is a decrease in productivity. If you find that you're suddenly less efficient or effective in your work, especially in certain environments, that could be negative energy at play. It's like the negative vibes are creating a fog that makes it harder for you to focus and get things done. You might also notice changes in your personal care habits. Maybe you're not taking care of yourself the way you usually do, skipping workouts, neglecting your skincare routine, or not bothering with the little self-care rituals that usually make you feel good. This kind of self-neglect can be a sign that negative energy is dragging you down. Now here's something really important to remember. All of these behavioral changes can have other causes too. Maybe you're stressed about a big project at work, or you're going through a tough time in your personal life. The key is to notice patterns. If these changes seem to happen consistently in certain places or around certain people, that's when you might want to consider whether negative energy is playing a role. And here's another crucial point. Noticing these changes doesn't mean you're weak or that there's something wrong with you. In fact, being aware of these shifts in your behavior is a sign that you're tuned into your environment and how it affects you. That awareness is a strength, not a weakness. So, what should you do if you notice these behavioral changes? Well, the first step is simply to acknowledge them. Don't judge yourself for them, just notice them. Then, start to pay attention to when and where these changes occur. Is it in a certain room in your house, at work, around certain people? Once you start to see patterns, you can begin to take steps to protect yourself from the negative energy that might be causing these changes. Remember, the goal here isn't to become paranoid about negative energy or to start blaming all your problems on it. The goal is to become more aware of how your environment affects you so you can make choices that support your well-being. Maybe that means rearranging your workspace, setting boundaries with certain people, or finding ways to clear negative energy from your home. We'll talk more about those strategies later in the video. For now, I want you to start paying attention to your behavior. Notice if you're acting differently than usual, especially in certain situations or around certain people. And remember, this isn't about judging yourself. It's about gathering information so you can make choices that help you feel your best. As we wrap up this section on behavioral changes, I want to remind you of something really important. You have more control over your environment than you might think. Sure, you can't always control the energy that other people bring into a space, but you can control how you respond to it. And the first step in taking that control is becoming aware of how negative energy affects you, physically, emotionally, and behaviorally. So, are you starting to see how all of this fits together? How negative energy can affect you on so many different levels? Great. In the next section, we're going to talk about how to spot negative energy in your environment. Because believe it or not, it's not just about how you feel. There are actually signs you can look for in the world around you. So stay tuned because we're about to take your energy sensing skills to the next level. How to know if there is negative energy around you. Final sections in conclusion. We've talked a lot about how negative energy can affect you personally, your body, your emotions, and your behavior. But now, let's zoom out a bit and look at the world around you. Because believe it or not, negative energy doesn't just affect people, it can leave its mark on your environment too. One of the most common signs of negative energy in your environment is plants dying without any obvious reason. You know how some people just seem to have a green thumb and their plants always thrive? Well, the opposite can happen when there's a lot of negative energy around. Plants are actually really sensitive to energy, so if you notice your usually healthy plants suddenly wilting or dying, especially in certain areas of your home or office, that could be a sign of negative energy. Another thing to watch out for is electronics acting up. Now, I'm not saying that every time your phone glitches, it's because of negative energy. But if you notice that your devices seem to malfunction more often in certain places, or that light bulbs burn out quickly in a particular room, that could be negative energy at work. It's like the negative vibes are interfering with the electrical energy that powers our devices. You might also notice that certain rooms in your house feel colder than others, even when the heating is working fine. This isn't just about temperature. It's about the feeling you get when you walk into the room. If you find yourself always wanting to leave a particular space because it feels chilly or uncomfortable, that could be your body picking up on negative energy. Clutter is another big sign of negative energy in your environment. Now, We're not talking about a little mess here and there. That's just life. We're talking about persistent clutter that never seems to get cleared away, no matter how much you try. It's like the negative energy is creating a kind of stagnation that makes it hard to keep things tidy and organized. You might also notice an increase in dust or cobwebs in certain areas. Again, this isn't just about housekeeping. It's about areas that seem to attract dust and grime no matter how often you clean them. In some traditions, it's believed that negative energy can actually manifest as physical dirt or dust. Another environmental sign to watch out for is unpleasant smells that seem to come from nowhere. You've cleaned thoroughly, you've checked for mold, but there's still a lingering odor in a certain room or area. Some people describe it as a musty smell or even a metallic odor. This could be a sign of stagnant or negative energy. Now, here's an interesting one. Pay attention to how animals behave in your space. Animals are often more sensitive to energy than humans are. If you notice your pets avoiding certain areas of your home or seeming anxious in particular spaces, that could be a sign of negative energy. On the flip side, if you notice an unusual number of insects or pests in a certain area, that could also indicate the presence of negative energy. Remember, just like with the personal signs we talked about earlier, these environmental signs don't always mean there's negative energy present. Sometimes a plant dies because it's not getting enough light or electronics malfunction because they're old. The key is to look for patterns and trust your instincts. If multiple signs are showing up in the same area and you also feel uncomfortable in that space, then it might be worth considering whether negative energy is at play. Now, we've talked about a lot of specific signs to look out for: physical symptoms, emotional changes, behavioral shifts, and even signs in your environment. But there's one more tool in your negative energy detecting toolkit that's incredibly powerful, and that's your own intuition. Your intuition, or your gut feeling, is like your personal energy sensor. It's that little voice inside you that says something's not right here, even when you can't put your finger on why. And when it comes to detecting negative energy, your intuition can be your best friend. You know that feeling you get sometimes when you walk into a room and immediately want to turn around and walk out? Or when you meet someone new and for no apparent reason, you feel uncomfortable around them? That's your intuition at work, picking up on energy that your conscious mind might not have processed yet. The thing is, we're all born with this ability to sense energy. It's a survival instinct that's been with us since our caveman days. But in our modern, logical world, we often ignore these feelings or write them off as silly. We've been taught to trust only what we can see and touch, and to ignore those irrational gut feelings. But here's the thing: your intuition isn't irrational at all. It's your subconscious mind processing all sorts of subtle cues that your conscious mind might miss. It's picking up on body language, tone of voice, and yes, energy, faster than you can consciously analyze it all. So how do you tap into this intuition? Well, the first step is to start paying attention to it. When you enter a new space or meet a new person, take a moment to check in with yourself. How do you feel? Do you feel relaxed and comfortable, or tense and on edge? Don't try to analyze it or figure out why you feel that way. Just notice the feeling. It's also important to trust your intuition, even if you can't explain it logically. If you feel uncomfortable in a certain place or around a certain person, honor that feeling. You don't have to make a big deal out of it or accuse anyone of anything. Just acknowledge to yourself that something doesn't feel right and take steps to protect your own energy. Now, this doesn't mean you should become paranoid or start avoiding every situation that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Growth often happens outside our comfort zone after all, but there's a difference between the normal nervousness of trying something new and that deep, gut-level feeling that something is off. Learning to trust your intuition takes practice. Start small, maybe by noticing how you feel when you enter different rooms in your house, or how your energy changes around different friends. As you practice, you'll start to recognize the difference between random thoughts and true intuitive hits. Remember, your intuition is a tool, just like all the other signs we've talked about. It's not about replacing logical thinking with gut feelings. It's about using both together to get a fuller picture of the energy around you. Now that we've covered all the signs of negative energy, from physical symptoms to gut feelings, let's talk about a practical way to check for negative energy in your space. I'm going to share with you a simple exercise that you can use anytime, anywhere, to get a sense of the energy around you. This exercise is called the room scanning technique, and it's a great way to tune into the energy of a space. Here's how it works. First, find a quiet moment when you won't be disturbed. Stand in the center of the room you want to check and close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths to center yourself and clear your mind. Now, imagine that you have an antenna extending from the top of your head. This antenna can sense energy. Slowly turn in a circle, keeping your eyes closed. As you turn, pay attention to any sensations you feel in your body. Do you feel a tingling sensation anywhere? A heaviness? A lightness? Just notice without judging. As you complete your circle, make a mental note of any spots in the room where you felt something unusual. These could be areas of negative energy. Next, open your eyes and look around the room. Do the spots where you felt something unusual correspond to any particular objects or areas in the room? Maybe a cluttered corner or a spot where arguments often happen? Finally, trust what you felt. If certain areas felt heavy or uncomfortable, those might be spots where negative energy has accumulated. This exercise might feel a bit strange at first, and that's okay. Like any skill, sensing energy takes practice. The more you do it, the more natural it will feel. Now, you might be wondering, what do I do if I find negative energy? Well, that's a great question, and it leads us to our next topic. So you've learned how to spot negative energy. You've noticed the signs in your body, your emotions, your behavior, and your environment. You've tapped into your intuition and maybe even tried the room scanning technique. Now what? Well, the good news is that there are lots of ways to clear negative energy from your space and protect yourself from its effects. While we don't have time to go into all of them in depth in this video, I can give you a few quick tips to get started. One of the simplest ways to clear negative energy is to open the windows and let fresh air circulate. This isn't just about improving air quality. It's about allowing stagnant energy to flow out and fresh energy to flow in. You can also try smudging, which is the practice of burning sage or other herbs to cleanse a space. Many cultures have used this technique for thousands of years to clear negative energy. Sound is another powerful tool for clearing energy. You can use a singing bowl, ring a bell, or even just clap your hands in the corners of a room to break up stagnant energy. For personal protection, visualization can be very effective. Imagine yourself surrounded by a bubble of white light that deflects negative energy. It might sound simple, but many people find this visualization very powerful. Remember, clearing negative energy isn't a one-time thing. It's a practice, just like keeping your house clean or taking care of your physical health. Regular energy clearing can help maintain a positive, uplifting environment in your home and in your life. We've covered a lot of ground in this video, from the physical signs of negative energy to techniques for clearing it. But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few key thoughts. First, remember that being aware of negative energy isn't about becoming fearful or paranoid. It's about empowering yourself to create the most positive, uplifting environment possible for yourself and those around you. Second, trust yourself. Your body, your emotions, your intuition, they're all giving you valuable information about the energy around you. Learn to listen to these signals and honor what they're telling you. Third, remember that you have the power to change the energy around you. Whether it's through clearing techniques, changing your own attitude, or simply choosing to spend time in places and with people that uplift you, you have more control over your energetic environment than you might think. Finally, be patient with yourself as you develop these skills. Sensing and managing energy is a practice, and like any practice, it takes time to master. But the more you work with it, the more natural it will become. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of energy awareness. I hope you found this information helpful and empowering. Remember, you have the power to create positive energy in your life. Use it wisely and watch how it transforms your world. As you go about your day, start paying attention to the energy around you. Notice how different places and people make you feel. And most importantly, trust your instincts. You might be surprised at what you discover. Here's to a life filled with positive energy and good vibes. Until next time, take care and stay energetically aware.